Today we're going to talk about why Sonic had an incredible weekend, Harley Quinn fell to number 2, and Bad Boys for Life continues to stick around in this weekend's box office update. What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. We're back with another box office update. We have so many things to talk about on this holiday 4-day weekend, and we'll get into those totals, but for the most part, we're going to focus on the 3-day. Who won the weekend? How did the wide releases do, the brand new ones? And we're also going to hit on some movies that fell out of the top 5, but they're still performing pretty well. Obviously, the big topic of today's discussion is going to be Sonic the Hedgehog. I know a lot of people are curious on how it ended up doing, not just in the United States, but internationally, worldwide, and clearly things are suffering right now with the international box office, everything going on in China with the coronavirus, and obviously human lives are more important than movies, so that is a tragedy and it needs to be taken care of. But within this video, we talk box office, so that's kind of what I want to focus on. And you know, a movie like Sonic the Hedgehog, I believe, would have benefited majorly from an opening in China, even if it wasn't this weekend, but clearly everything is being delayed right now. I just got an update from Twitter saying No Time to Die, the brand new James Bond film, they're canceling their tour over in China, and things are kind of at a halt right now, which is crazy to think because China is slowly becoming the biggest box office location, possibly even bigger than the United States. I believe it's on track to pass that eventually, or it may have already have. So obviously that's going to hurt their totals. But before we get into the top 5, I want to focus on some films outside of that. And we start with the new release that did not make its way into that top 5, and that is Downhill, the brand new Will Ferrell film that is from Fox Searchlight Pictures. So I find that to be... Searchlight Pictures, because Fox doesn't exist anymore. But I find it to be interesting that no one was really interested in a Will Ferrell-led film that is coming from that studio, because this movie only ended up bringing in $4.6 million, I guess, which isn't the worst I've ever seen. But with those two stars and a marquee studio like that, one would expect more. I don't think the reviews helped it, but that was really the only new release that didn't make it into that top 5. Some other films that I want to mention is, you know, Dolittle. As poor as it's been doing, it only dropped 22%, so I guess that's a win for this weekend, but overall, it's still only made $182 million worldwide, with the budget of $175 million worldwide. That is not counting marketing. That is not counting the percentage that the theaters take in, so yeah, this film is still a bust, but it had a small drop this weekend, so I guess that's good. The 3 big films that I want to highlight are 1917, Jumanji: The Next Level, and Parasite. By the way, if you're wondering where Star Wars is, it only fell 45% this last weekend, but it fell all the way to number 15, whereas it was number 9 last weekend. The film is currently sitting at $1.066 billion at the worldwide box office, which, you know, is good. Right? It's definitely not a bust. It made $1 billion. It's Star Wars, this and that. But if we look at the drops and where it falls compared to even The Last Jedi, which wasn't as close as it should have been to The Force Awakens, yeah, this franchise is just kind of, we're going to take a nap, we're going to take a breather, we're going to bring it back in a couple of years, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, coming in front of a movie like Dolittle is Parasite. And obviously, it's going to add theaters where it won Best Picture. It added 941 theaters, but the real number here is 234% increase. It increased 234%, making $5.5 million at the box office, which is absolutely what we wanted to see out of a movie like this. Clearly, the big win, right, or multiple wins, was going to influence or encourage people to go out and see it, and they absolutely did, so that's very nice to see. I hope it continues to make money, and we see small drops at the box office, as long as it stays in around 2,000 theaters, which is what it's at right now. And then coming in right above that is Jumanji: The Next Level at number 7, with a 2.6% increase, not a drop, an increase at the box office in 2,700 theaters at $5.7 million. So nice to see for a movie like Jumanji: The Next Level. You know, when it first dropped, right, the numbers were a bit lower than the first, and people were saying, well, is it going to compare? Is it going to measure up to what the first one brought overall? And weeks, months later, it's still remaining in that top 10. It was in the top 5 for quite some time, and it's currently at $780 million at the worldwide box office. And crazy enough, domestically, which is where I personally thought it was going to struggle, 307. I mean, this is a franchise that keeps sticking around. There have been increases, small decreases, and it keeps doing it, man. So I'm so happy to see that. I wasn't overwhelmed with the movie. I didn't absolutely love it, but I really enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed this franchise, and I cannot wait to see another one because you know they're going to make that. And then 1917, a movie that I love talking about, one that I am going to try my best to go and see one more time. Now, this next weekend, I've noticed in multiple theaters around me, anyways, that it is leaving theaters. So this will really be your last chance to go and rewatch it. Not for everyone, but for a lot of people. It's going to leave some of the major chains. But still, $8 million, only a 12% drop in 2,000 theaters. It's losing theaters. It's going to slowly fade away. But after earning $323 million at the worldwide box office, $145 in the United States, that is fairly incredible. I love this movie. So happy to see what it's doing, and it is a major box office success. But I want to get into the top 5 on the weekend. And at number 5, last week at number 2, this is Bad Boys for Life. Now, from 5 to 2, right, seems like a bad thing, but no, because it only dropped 5.9%, still in 3,000 plus theaters, coming in at $11.3 million. Bad Boys for Life has just blown every expectation out of the water. I'm talking fans, audiences, more casual fans, and the studio. I don't think the studio anticipated it to do this well at the box office. $182 million domestically, $369 million worldwide. Pretty incredible for this Martin Lawrence and Will Smith-led film. My personal favorite in the franchise. But we had a lot of new releases this weekend, so clearly that's going to push these other movies down. Coming in at number 4 is The Photograph. The Photograph, surprisingly to me, on a budget of $16 million, brought in $13.3 million. You have a demographic there. Obviously, it's Valentine's Day weekend, so people are going to go out on the double dates, and you got little Keith Stanfield, one of my favorite actors out there, and a sweet-looking story. It's still a movie that I personally need to go see. I'm actually planning on going and seeing it today and reviewing it on Letterboxd, but The Photograph ended up doing very well. It also got extremely close to Fantasy Island. And since these are estimates, and I do want to say this, I always do these videos on a Sunday, and these are just the estimates, so when something is this close, it could always end up being number 3, but as of now, Fantasy Island is number 3. Fantasy Island brought in $12.4 million in the United States, $7.6 million internationally. Now, we look at this movie as a major flop, right? Because it was so bad. I personally thought the movie was bad, but box office-wise, it's not a flop. The film was only made for $7 million. Blumhouse, say what you will about their movies. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're awful. They have this structure, this model that they abide by and follow to where most of their films are going to be successful because the budgets are so small. And the fact that this movie made that much money, it's currently sitting at $21.6 million worldwide, is pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible, especially for one, I believe, of this quality. So Fantasy Island is not a box office bomb. It is a film that, obviously people were intrigued by, interested in. It was a Valentine's Day type of movie because it's this crazy, wacky, love-centric adventure. It did good. It did well. That hurts my soul. No, it's fine. Listen, I don't want to see any movie fail, regardless of how I feel about it. So great for everyone involved. Great for Blumhouse. I'm fine with it. Then we come to Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation. Just kidding. It's now Harley Quinn Birds of Prey because they changed the name, which was a smart move by Warner Brothers. I just believe it was too late. They should have done that before the movie released. Regardless, this film is not a box office bomb. I've been seeing that online. Some major websites have been tweeting this out and whatnot, and it's just not. If you look at the numbers, it's not a box office bomb. Is it a huge success for the studio? No. Is it what they wanted? No. Is it what fans of the movie wanted? Absolutely not. But there's a big difference between doing okay/mediocre at the box office and being a box office bomb. A box office bomb is something like Doolittle, right? With a budget that big and only just reaching that budget, if not barely coming underneath it, which we've seen many movies do over the last couple of months. This film is actually doing okay, right? A 48% drop from last weekend. We went from 33 to 17.115 million dollars at the box office this weekend. And we look at the fact that it's made $61 million in the United States and $145 million worldwide. Well, the budget was $85 million. That is clearly much higher than the budget. Now, has it made money? Not necessarily, because you have to factor in these other things. You have to factor in marketing and the percentage that the theaters take in. But even then, it will continue to surpass that. It is doing pretty well internationally at $83 million, and it is on track to make some pretty good money. Now, if you're comparing it to these other big blockbuster superhero films, no, but even a movie like Shazam didn't do all that well at the box office for superhero standards, but it still did well for what its own standards should have been, because it's just not a huge recognizable IP. Now, some can say Harley Quinn is a big IP, but the film was called Birds of Prey for 2.5 weeks, right? It was, or a lot longer than that, I guess, ever since they started the marketing. And now it's Harley Quinn. Is that going to help the box office in a big way? I don't think so. At this point, it's a little too late for that. But the fact that it's made what it's made, and it's not just I'm defending this movie because I had fun with the film. No, that's not what it is. It's just not a bomb. It's not. It's not doing incredibly at the box office. It's not necessarily a win for the studio, but it's not a box office bomb. And I have been seeing this argument online, especially on Twitter, of all places. I've been seeing Birds of Prey fans and Sonic fans go at each other. And I'm just sitting back going, why? It's such a random comparison. Like, why Sonic and Birds of... Is it because they came out back to back? What is it? What is going on? Why are these two movies out of all of the other movies out right now being compared? Like, I would even buy Jumanji as much as I would Birds of Prey being compared to Sonic, or 1917, or Bad Boys for Life. It's that random. Let's find two movies and... I don't understand. Can you fill me in? Is Sonic Marvel? Is that what it is? Am I missing something? Clearly. Regardless, coming in at number 1 on the weekend, and I'm so happy to report this, is Sonic the Hedgehog. So for a long time, I was afraid for this film. One, that's because the trailer scared me. I'm like, oh, I hope it's good. And I ended up enjoying the movie. 2, this is one where fans had to show out, right? Because... fans were the ones that encouraged the studio to go back and do the redesign, and thank goodness that they did, because that was really bad. It changed, and now it's really good. But doing that, fans had to show out to the theater, because if they would not have, then studios would look at what happened and say, that will never happen again. We will never listen to fans again. Now, as I always say, it isn't something that I want to continue to happen, because I love when artists can do their own thing and make their own art. But in this special case, I'm glad they did what they did. Thankfully, fans showed out, and we got Sonic the Hedgehog to number 1 on the weekend. But not only number 1 on the weekend, Sonic the Hedgehog ended up doing great. Compared to my and some others' expectations, great at the domestic box office at $57 million for the 3-day weekend. And we'll get into the 4-day totals, but $68 million for the 4-day, $43 million internationally, which, you look at that number and maybe that's not as high as I would have anticipated. We're going to have to work on those international numbers, guys. And obviously what I mentioned with China, that is definitely affecting it. But worldwide, $111 million. I am so, especially with these domestic numbers, because that's honestly what I was most worried about. I am so happy to see that people actually showed up for this film and got it to a point to where I think a sequel is pretty much confirmed. I mean, we'll have to see what the drops are, and we'll have to see if the international numbers continue to raise a bit. I mean, I hope those numbers go up on an $85 million budget, just like Birds of Prey. $111 million, in my opinion, is already a success because we know those numbers will continue to rise. It'll hit $200 million, just as I think Birds of Prey will. But Sonic the Hedgehog, I mean, this is for a video game movie to do this well critically. And it wasn't over the moon for critics, but they at least enjoyed it for the most part. And that's exactly how I feel. But to do that critically, the audience score, the cinema score, the fact that it's doing so well at the box office, this is a huge win for the character of Sonic, for this movie franchise, for an inevitable, at this point, I believe, sequel. I mean, you've even got Jim Carrey talking about a sequel. And Jim Carrey says, and he says this all the time, I don't like doing sequels because I've done them before and they've just never really panned out, especially critically. But you can tell there's this passion that I've not seen from Jim Carrey in quite some time about this franchise, this character. It could be the fact that they just let him be Jim Carrey, right? And he loves that, and I love that, and I want to see that again. But he has this passion. The director's already mentioned he would want to come back. Ben Schwartz he's lobbying like crazy for this character, and fans showed out. They showed their support. They had a great time in the theater. I would actually be willing to go and watch this movie again. That's how much fun I had. I just think this character is so great. And it's so cool to see a video game movie find this kind of success. On that budget, to make this in one weekend, it's pretty incredible, guys. But let's get into the President's Day weekend box office. That's right, the 4-day. This includes Monday. We're going to focus on the top 5. And we're going to see all of these numbers raise just a little bit. Bad Boys for Life, $12.8 million. The Photograph, $13.39. Fantasy Island, $14 million. That's still very close. One could pass the other. Birds of Prey, or, as we know now, Harley Quinn, $19.5. And Sonic the Hedgehog, $68 million. I like seeing Sonic be that high. Now, could some other movies have come out and maybe inflated the 2, 3, 4 spot a tad bit? Maybe. These aren't the highest President's Day numbers we've ever seen. But for the most part, it went well. Valentine's Day is happening, so people going out on the dates, doing the romantic movies. But nothing is more romantic than spending your evening with Sonic the Hedgehog. And that's pretty much it for me, guys. If you enjoy these box office videos, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. It really helps out this channel, and it tells me you would like to see more things like this. And comment your thoughts. How do you feel about Sonic just sweeping this weekend? Do you think Birds of Prey is a box office bomb or a flop? I mean, it's definitely underwhelming when you look at what we all wanted it to do, right? What we wanted for this character. And then let me know what you think about the other movies. How do you feel about Parasite raising up a lot, 1917 continuing to do well along with Jumanji, and Fantasy Island? What's your fantasy? All right, thank you guys so much for watching. A really special video coming out tomorrow. My really early predictions for Best Picture 2021. You guys the best. I'll see you soon.